This is the world's busiest airport. Over 275,000 people travel through this airport every single day. Which happens to be where I am now. But I was not there to see the glory of the Atlanta airport. I went right next door.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. I snuck into a $500 million Bitcoin facility. No, like, actually snuck in, as you can tell by this totally unstaged video here with me with the security guard. But in all seriousness, thank you to CleanSpark for hosting this tour for us. It was really interesting, and I have a lot to show you guys. If you're interested in CleanSpark, they actually are a public company. You can buy their stock under the ticker symbol CLSK. I am a shareholder of CleanSpark, full disclosure. So, back to the airport. Why did I start the video with that? Well, you know, what are the differences between an airport and a Bitcoin facility? Well, for starters, obviously you don't fly airplanes out of Bitcoin facilities. I guess you could also say 275,000 people don't go through a Bitcoin facility every single day. In fact, I barely got into the facility, so I was a lucky one that went through the Bitcoin facility. But also, surprisingly, this Bitcoin facility and CleanSpark, the company, use more power than the Atlanta airport. They are bigger customers for Georgia Power than the Atlanta airport. But anyways, enough of the useless facts. Let's discuss Bitcoin. Hey Siri, what is a Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a protocol which implements a highly available, public, permanent, and...
Okay, to put it simply, Bitcoin is a virtual currency. You cannot physically touch a Bitcoin. It's an intangible asset that sits on the internet. Now, that might freak a lot of people out, but we need to realize that that's kind of the way things work currently in our current monetary system anyway. If you have money in your bank account or your brokerage account, chances are you're never going to physically touch the dollar bills that represent the money or the amount of money you have in your accounts, because those dollar bills don't physically exist. The vast majority of the money in our system today is digital. But what does give Bitcoin its value and what does separate it from the way things currently work is the fact that Bitcoin doesn't have a single central authority. There is no central bank. There is no Federal Reserve. There is no US government, or any government for that matter, that backs Bitcoin. This means that there is no central authority that can go out and print more Bitcoin tomorrow like they can with the US dollar. So the appeal of Bitcoin to somebody like me is based on the premise that going back forever in history, every single monetary system and every single currency that has ever existed has eventually failed for one reason or another. And it appears that Bitcoin fixes a lot of the issues that our current monetary system faces today. So I believe there's at least a remote possibility that moving forward, our world could move to a Bitcoin standard instead of a fiat standard. Now, if that happens, obviously the upside for Bitcoin is almost uncapped from current prices of around $28,000 as I'm recording this video. So all of this is great and all, but what does a Bitcoin facility do? Why did I go visit this place? Well, to understand that, you need to understand one additional thing, and that's what a blockchain is. Blockchain is just a way of storing data and transactions in a very, very secure way. To secure the blockchain, there are hundreds of thousands of computers working every second of every day, every weekend, every holiday to secure the blockchain and make sure every single transaction that happens with Bitcoin is legitimate and is secure and is safe. To put it simply, Bitcoin is the reward that these hundreds of thousands of computers receive for securing the blockchain and making sure all of the transactions that happen with Bitcoin are secure, safe, and legitimate. So, this huge facility that I visited, this $500 million facility, is basically a Bitcoin mine. It's the same sort of concept as a gold mine. CleanSpark itself is receiving around 20 Bitcoin every single day for securing the Bitcoin blockchain, which works out to about $150 million in revenue every single year.
All right, so quick update. I appear to be the least dressed here, but that's okay. To do my job, you gotta be mobile, on the move. These people just don't get it. I mean, they're all in suits and ties. CLSK balloons, by the way. That's pretty awesome. We got the mayor over there. And I mean, I'll show you. I'm definitely underdressed, but they just don't understand.
It's 87,000 square feet. It sits on 7 acres. And the strategy initially was to maybe remove the roof and use air cooling but vent vertically. The challenge is that when you use an air-cooled environment, there are fans that remove the air, there are fans on the machines, so it creates a bit more of a noise issue. So in a residential community like this, we wanted to be more mindful of that. Not only that, but because we're constrained with the size of the load that we have here, we have about 20 megawatts, we wanted to maximize the ability to deploy that entire power. So immersion cooling became the logical next choice. What you'll notice when we go outside is there are computers that are soaked in bathtubs full of a synthetic mineral oil. So it's biodegradable, it's non-toxic. Our chief of staff was joking around, put her finger in it and actually put it in her mouth. I wouldn't advise it, but it's non-toxic. The point is that those machines, that fluid circulates inside the machines. So when we receive them from the manufacturer, we take the fans off, we disassemble them to allow the fluid to flow through. Now that fluid stays in a closed loop, and you'll see that when we go outside, but beneath each machine you'll see a gold box, and that's a heat exchanger. It's like the radiator on your car. So there's water that flow through those. Now those are closed loop, those are dry coolers. Now we've got the adiabatic system turned on today, which is the misters like you see on any patio bar in Vegas. So what those do is they by evaporation, they decrease the temperature of the fluid. So what happens is there's water that goes from the coolers into the heat exchangers in all of the pods, and then it goes back out. So it removes the heat, goes back out, and it cools there. It's closed loop, it doesn't consume any water. So the only water that's being consumed is the little bit of a mist, and we wanted to turn that on to explain so everybody could see what that looks like when you have the evaporative cooling function. So this facility, as I mentioned, is 100% immersion. So when this miner came out of the box, and it had fans in all of those holes and fans on the top and the bottom, it was capable of producing about 100 terahash per second of transactional power, computing power. Now, we could fill these all the way up with 33 miners. What happens is that the fluid, the object of this tank, the heat exchanger and the dry coolers you see, is to remove the heat in the most efficient manner. What immersion cooling enables us to do is to override the factory firmware on these machines. So instead of processing at 100 terahash per second, we can crank these up to 120, 130, 140, 150 terahash per second. That consumes a bit more power, but it also generates more heat. So part of what our process has been a measure twice, cut once approach. So rather than fill every tank all the way with 33 machines and then deal with temperature, what we do is we fill the tanks with the proper number of machines that we've experimented with, that we can then overclock for max efficiency and keep the temperature at its lowest level. So these machines are all operating significantly above their plated value, which means that we get more production for less cost of power, which increases the overall efficiency.
That's what we call printing money, J-Pow. What do you have on CleanSpark? So standing back here with all these miners, I mean, it's literally money around me. I can still feel the heat coming off of this mineral water that these miners are submerged in. You know, I could try and stick my camera in it. I don't think I will. Those are a lot of power cables.
We have sophisticated technology here which keeps track of all of our miners.
and it shows what the temperature is of the miners, right? So you can see here that they're running, in the mid to low 60s.
So is that the ideal range is mid-low 60s?
Yeah, our team has determined that that is the ideal range given the power and the temperature outside especially. And this software also allows us to manage the miners if we wanted to tick them up or turn them off quickly for curtailing or for power management. And it also alerts us if there's an issue, right? So with Immersion, there's less maintenance that's needed here. But if anything happens, it's usually like a PDU unit popping, which happens, right? They have a certain useful life, but the useful life of the machines are actually extended by being in the oil because there's no moving parts because we take off the fans, all that, and we're able to overclock it by 20 and 30%.
Cool. So what's the lifespan of a miner? Like when will one of these miners need to be replaced?
Still TBD. I tell you that typically in air-cooled, miners last about 5 years in the best operating environments. These very well could last longer than 5 years, but I would think that at the 5-year point, technology might be different to where we'd probably put these through an upgrade cycle.
Okay.
So if you think like the S17s, there's still S17s running today, but there's more efficient miners out there that you want to upgrade to.
Oh, that was a walk. I mean, look at that. So what I've shown you this far is just phase 1, 8 megawatts of power. There's more. This is incredible. So I think what would be smart to do is taste test each phase to see which phase is my favorite. So I'm gonna dip my finger in there. Supposedly non-toxic, and if that's not true, they'll have a lawsuit on their hands. So doesn't taste too bad.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. Holy cow.
The first area we were in is, we call it phase 1. That's 8 megawatts of power. And when we moved in here, when we acquired this building, it had popcorn ceiling panels, low ceilings in the area that we were just in. It had the traditional late 80s, early 90s circa pink carpet. It had the pink and tan cubicles with the pink and tan. It was a dusty, dirty, messy. We bought it and I thought, oh my gosh, what did we get ourselves into? So where the section we just left was cubicles and office space. This facility is 87,000 square feet. We have 7 acres. Now this is phase 2. The dry coolers, the operation is exactly the same as you saw in phase 1. The difference is this deployment is 12 megawatts. So it's 50% again more than what you saw before. And as you walk down on this deployment, you'll notice that towards the end, the oil in the tanks changes. That's a test we're doing with Shell. So Shell has designed a new synthetic mineral oil that is intended to be more efficient at removing heat.
All right, so just to show you how big this area is, I'm gonna set my camera up on the floor here and I'm going to walk to the other side. So I'm walking pretty fast right now. I'm about halfway through it. And maybe you can hear me breathing heavy. There's about 2 tanks left, and now I've officially reached the end of it right here. And they're using 2 different mineral oils. One of them's more clear, one of them's yellow. There's no difference in performance yet that they can see. It's just the quality of the materials. Okay, so you'll probably hear a little bit of noise through this mic. I'm sure my mic's picking it up. But compared to a regular air-cooled facility, this is very quiet. And keep in mind, we're inside of a building, so all this sound is contained. So what we have is right here, this top pipe here, this is the cold water coming through, and it works just like a radiator under here, right there, where cold water comes in. It runs right next to this warm mineral oil that the miners are submerged in, and it cools off that oil. And then that warm water is circulated back through this bottom pipe, and we can see that the new oil here is in this it's in this left container here, and then as you move more to the right, you can actually start to feel more heat of where this is the older mineral oil that has yet to be circulated and cooled back off. It's really, really a neat process, and I gotta taste test this mineral oil here now. The second one was better. So here, it's gonna be a little louder, but you can see we have two huge pipes here with these skinnier ones that are connected to these tubs. That's where that water circulates, but then you have these huge pipes that take two rows of these miners, and it circulates it here out of the building and into the building. So what happens with all of this if the internet goes down?
Well, if the internet goes down, well, we have some redundancy on the internet, so outages happen from time to time, but obviously we need an internet connection to be able to mine Bitcoin. So,
all right.
So we're relying on energy and power. So those are the
controllables.
Yeah.
So this is what air cooling Bitcoin mining sounds like. You can tell it's way different sound from Immersion. It's crazy, and it's really, really hot in here. Compared to outside, they're cooling out there. Like it's 50, 60 degrees out there, and in here it's gotta be 80, 90 degrees. I mean, the amount of heat these are putting off is crazy.
So what's really important to note is rather than hundreds of little fans doing the work, those are just idling. We get these 3 big fans with gear reduction, so you can see how small the pulley is. So the RPMs of the motors aren't very high, and with the massive blade, it creates heavy feel. There's 180,000 CFM of air when the door is shut, it's forced through the filtration.
So you can kind of hear, my mic is picking it all up. It's really loud out here, but this is really cool out here. I'm still at the College Park facility. I'm right now in what they call a hot aisle, I believe is what they said, hot row, where the hot air is compressing in on me. But if I would walk one more this way, the air, it's so hard to explain because we're out in the open. I mean, there's this guy right here, but there is a 30-degree difference in this row and aisle rather than the one I was just in. I mean, this is crazy.
I just want to give one last shout out to CleanSpark and the management team over there for inviting me to come tour their facilities. Currently, this company has over 70,000 computers actively mining Bitcoin 24/7, 365. To put that into perspective, during this tour, I saw less than half of their active miners. And just yesterday, they announced they're going to be doubling their previous projection, and by the end of 2023, they're going to have close to 200,000 computers mining Bitcoin throughout every single day. That is extraordinary. Now, if you are curious about CleanSpark, I will continue to follow this company very, very closely on my channel. There will be future exclusive content with that management team over there. They've always been really good to me. But most importantly, I just want to say thank you for coming and watching this video. If you learned something new, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below. And if you're new here or returning and not yet subscribed, I would greatly appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. With that, have a great rest of your day. If I never see you again, keep your chin up and 10 toes to the ground. Go kick some butt. Peace out.